This is Article 49, neonicotinoid prohibition on town agricultural land. Ms. Grimwood.
Can I ask what happened to 48?
Who's doing it? Oh, John, sorry, didn't see you. Sorry, Article 48, I skipped. Petition, historic districts, bylaw, nominating organizations. Mr. Althouse. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I bring an article by petition, which is to determine whether the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for an act to amend Chapter 345, which is Concord's historic district bylaw. This would change the organizations that nominate members to the commission. In Section 4, which is the membership section, the bylaw would replace, this change would replace Concord Antiquarian Society doing business as the Concord Museum with Concord Historical Commission, and would replace reference to the trustees of the Free Public Library Corporation with Concord Local Cultural Council. Next slide, please. Briefly, since the hour is late, here are the reasons that I suggest for making this change. It would remove private corporations from the nominating process, something which is a little out of kilter with the way we appoint other commissions in town. This makes our bylaw more compatible with the State Enabling Act, Chapter 40C, which does explicitly include the Historical Commission of Towns in the membership nominating process. Further, both the museum and the library own substantial properties within the current historic districts. This change would eliminate any appearance of possible conflict of interest or self-dealing by those organizations. It is true and reasonable that the priorities of these private organizations might not align with town goals in all cases. Further, the Historical Commission and the Local Cultural Council have a town-wide interest in preservation of both the fabric and the culture of Concord. Next slide, please. This and the following slides simply show the resultant language of the bylaw and naming both the Historical Commission and the Local Cultural Council on this page, and then on the next page, again, naming those two organizations. And finally, the article. Thank you.
First suggestion is just Board of Selectmen needs to be changed to Select Board.
Thank you.
Not. Any questions from the Select Board? Any questions from the audience? Apparently we do. Ms. Litwack.
Sherry Litwack, 1575 Monument Street, and trustee of the Concord Free Public Library Corporation. The Massachusetts legislature, by acts of 1960, created the Concord Historic Districts Commission and authorized the trustees of the Concord Free Public Library and the Concord Museum to each nominate a member of the HDC. It was assumed that the Concord Museum and the library trustees, by virtue of their charge and position in the town, would be best able to select persons with the necessary qualifications to understand the mission of the HDC and to serve on such an important board. Another reason for this was to have input on the HDC from town organizations that were independent from the town and separate from the town select board and the town manager as appointing authorities. If there were a perceived conflict, if there were a perceived conflict of the from the library or museum appointee could recuse themselves, as is or should be done with neighbors, friends, relatives, and any other person with a relationship to the applicant. This has been a successful model for 60 years, and I just wonder why this change is being proposed now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Proctor.
Do you want to address that?
No.
Oh, okay. Diane Proctor, 57 Sudbury Road. John, my question is about the Concord Local Cultural Council. It would be the entire council that would come together, and that they would then appoint somebody to the Historic District Commission. Is that your presumption?
They
And
actually
is
do
such
not
an
appoint, they nominate.
they would nominate. The select board would make the
appoints.
appointment.
Yes.
Okay, and there is such a standing council.
Yes, there is.
Okay, I thought there was one in West Concord and one in Concord. So is there a third one?
I have spoken to the chairman of that commission, and he did not indicate that there was a second entity.
There is.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Matt. Ms. Lauer.
Ruth Lauer, 100 Kais Road. I think that goes part of the way to my question. I know we have cultural districts, West Concord and Concord Center, but do we not have the Cultural Council, which expends lottery money on events and programs throughout the community? And which one are you intending to be the sending organization?
Cultural Council.
Well, it's titled the Concord Local Cultural Council, and that is reflected on the town website and on the list of boards.
Stay close to the mic, John.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so it's the Concord Local Cultural Council. It shows up on the website. It's an appointed board.
So this would be a very different activity for this board, since they don't meet every week or necessarily every month. They have the lottery money that they have to award, and I know they're very intense. They do a good job. They act like a committee acts, but it's a very different action from this sort of request.
As it is for every entity that makes nominations to this group, except the select board. It's certainly not what the library usually does. It's not what the museum usually does. And I think the Cultural Council represents a town-wide view
It does.
of preserving our culture in town. And that's part of what the Historic District Commission nomination helps to promote.
And if I could have a follow-up, is it broken? Is that why you need to make the change? I understand from Concord Antiquarian Society to Concord Museum, because there's been an official name change, but does the museum not fulfill its responsibility in such a way that Concord Historical Commission would fill that gap?
I believe this change would be an improvement.
Okay, thank you.
I don't really want to stand here and cast aspersions in any direction.
No,
I believe that this would be an improvement to the nominating process and would end up with a better Historic Districts Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kate Chartner, 888 Sudbury Road. Should I say I'm a Historic Districts Commissioner, but that's
You
not
should.
Okay, and I'm a Concord Museum Governor. I'm a museum appointee, but I'm here more because, John, I want to make sure when you present this at town meeting that people do understand, as Shelley had mentioned, that Concord's Historic Districts Commission is organized under a special act of legislature. That is, it could have been organized under Mass General Law, like other towns do, and then just follow typical 40C enabling processes. But our town and our state legislature saw fit that Concord was special enough that it actually needed its own organization and its own way of populating it. And as Shelley had said, relied on the respected and reliable sources of the museum and the library to contribute to that, which they do. And usually if there is any conflict, as I had to do repeatedly last year, the relative appointees do recuse themselves. But I just think it's important when you present this that people understand the history of the Special Act. It is worth looking at. Most other towns, historic commissions do not have private party entities on their board, but they're not organized the same way we are either, and that has worked to our advantage at different times. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
And if I can clarify, the Concord Historic Districts bylaw came before the Enabling Act. So there was no Chapter 40C at the time that Chapter 345 was passed. So we were leading the way, in effect, and did not have the opportunity to use 40C.
True, but we've not amended it. I mean, it's, you know, they have overlapped for a few decades now, and I think part of the strength
But
is
the bylaw has been amended. It has been amended.
our special act.
Yes, our special
Yes, it
act.
has been amended, but I think understanding why this came about and also the special act, you know, like some of the woman just before me said, is something broken, is something not working. It's just worth thinking about.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Fiore.
Dennis Fiore, 309 Strawberry Hill Road. I currently serve on the Library Committee. I've served in the HDC 2 terms, and I was former director of the Concord Museum. So I'm well aware of these issues. And I think tonight we're being left with the impression that neither the library or the museum have anything to do with history or historic preservation from what you just said. The library archives are looked to all the time when research is being done on historic structures, and the Concord Museum is looked to for some similar information, particularly from their staff. So they're very involved in any of these decisions, so to take them away from them seems rather odd. Again, I'd like to ask why you're timing this now.
Do you want to respond?
Well, I think I would leave these arguments for town meeting.
Yes, I think that's fair enough.
Because this is not a time really to debate the articles as much to understand
try
their
to
structure
understand.
and intent, as I
But
understand.
the question is a good question.
It's a great question.
Why now? But I just don't get into a debate.
That would be fine. Again, my real interest here was to refute the idea, as this goes forward, that neither the museum nor the library have anything to do with history or historic preservation.
Thank you.
There's been no such assertion on my part.
Good evening.
I'm Louis Versbadia from 410 Lexington Road. I am the vice chair of the Historic Districts Commission, and I'm speaking now strictly in my behalf. And I'm not speaking in favor or against this proposition, but I'm clarifying some points that may help the rest of the audience understand and form an idea of what is being discussed. Currently, there are 5 institutions in town that nominate members to the Historic Districts Commission, which is the Select Board, the Planning Board, the Natural Resources Commission, the Concord Museum, and the Concord Library. The first 3 institutions mentioned are town-wide institutions or entities that operate for all the citizens of Concord. The last 2 are strictly private institutions, which must, as a matter of principle, promote their own interests, which may or may not align with the interests of the town. So as a matter of principle, it would be appropriate to remove any private interest from goals that are meant to affect all the citizens of Concord, regardless of their particular affiliation. Having said that, I will give you my personal impression, which is that both the Concord Museum and the Concord Library have been very loyal participants in the dealings of the Historic Districts Commission. And I don't see the fact that they would not be any longer members of the nominating committee as any decrease or diminution of the important role that they play in the Historic District Commission and in all the matters of the history of this very important town. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much.